Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on this beautiful Saturday morning. When I had the opportunity to start my radio show way back 10 plus years ago, over at the old TSN studios, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. I don't think this gentleman is going to give me the time of day, but I'm going to reach out to TSN and see if maybe I have a shot at having a conversation with Jack Armstrong. And lo and behold, not only did Jack come on, but, you know, Jack, over time, as we've gotten to know each other, you came for a clinic. You, of course, came and did the Raptors when they played the Nuggets back in 2016. That's 10 years ago. That's hard to believe. But I've had the opportunity to talk with you so many times, and it's always a pleasure. And it's especially exciting today after the Raptors dramatic win last night, to be able to have you on. Thanks so much for making the time.
And, incredible win last night, and off to Cleveland now for Game 7 tomorrow night. So it should be a lot of fun. But just a phenomenal atmosphere at the arena. It was just absolutely electric, and really happy for the fans that came out and watched it, and the folks that watched it all across the country. It was really a cool celebration, and a young team that's battling right now. You know, you consider the fact that they're missing two starters, and Emmanuel Quickly and Brandon Ingram, and Cleveland's at full strength, full health. And to me, it just shows the resiliency and the toughness and the competitive spirit that this group has right now.
Well, it really does, Jack, and I think that can't be overstated at all, because Cleveland has the highest payroll in the NBA, and they've gone all in for this year. And now the Raptors are taking them to 7 games, down 2 starters. Of course, the dramatic R.J. Barrett shot last night of bringing back to the collective memory of all the Raptors fans across Canada of the great Kawhi Leonard shot against Philadelphia back in 2019. But let's talk about R.J. Barrett's impact on this series. R.J., I'm not going to call it a revelation, but I hope Raptors fans are getting a sense for the versatility that R.J. Barrett brings to this lineup and how effective he is, particularly playing off Scotty Barnes.
Well, he's a ball player, Paul. You know, I think the way I describe it, when you look at R.J., and it's funny, I was chatting with his dad, Rowan, last night after the game, and he's your classic guy. If you do a statistical analysis of him, there will be some holes that pop up. If you say, hey, we're going to go to the schoolyard, we're going to choose, we're going to play 5-on-5, shirts and skins, and, we're going to play the best team to 11, best team to 21, whatever it is, and play. I want that guy on my team because he's going to find a way to win. And, some of the things are going to be, he's going to have stretches where he's not the most efficient guy, but it's not the lack of trying. And he is going to be one of the great competitors on the floor. And, look, we had Kyle Lowry in Toronto, and, Kyle Lowry would miss 5-6 shots in a row. But when you needed that 7th one, he was there, and he was fearless, and he was willing to take it and was going to make it for you and make big plays. So, to me, I think there's a special DNA that certain people have that have an understanding of the moment and how to meet the moment and how to be ready for it. And they're not in fear of it. They can live with failure. And that's a big part of this. And he's not afraid of that. He doesn't shy away from it. He throws himself into it. Sometimes he might throw himself too far into it, but that's okay. I'd rather guys like that got to pull back a little than the other ones that are timid, that are and not really willing to lay themselves on the line for the greater good. So again, people get too over the top evaluating. They outthink themselves sometimes. And to me, I just think he's that guy that if I need a win, I want that guy on my side rather than the other side, because I know he's going to be one of the best competitors out there, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win. He's ruthless. He'll rip your heart out.
Talking to Jack Armstrong, just off the play-by-play last night of the Toronto Raptors' victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers. You made the statement last night during the broadcast, Jack, that Scotty Barnes has been the best player in this series. Elaborate on that a bit.
Well, there's not even a question about that. To me, if I had to look at R.J. Barrett and Donovan Mitchell and James Harden and Mobley and guys like that, I might even put R.J. Barrett as the second best player in the series. But there's no question in my mind that Scotty Barnes' impact on both ends. You can look at again, the person that just looks at stats might say, well, Donovan Mitchell this or James Harden this, but watch the game. I mean, you look at Scotty Barnes. The guy is scoring. His playmaking is incredible. His defense on and off ball is off the charts. It's disruptive. You look out there and you go, eye test. Forget numbers, eye test. Eye test tells you everything. And you're like, man, that's the best guy out there between the two teams. His just the force, the intensity, the grit that he's playing with right now, and again, the level of productivity that he's bringing to the table is just at an elite level.
Well, I totally agree with you, Jack, on that. And the connection I would also add in terms of the eye test is when you watch Barrett and you watch Barnes play, the intensity, the focus on every play is there. And then you watch them off the court, and it's talked about a lot in basketball circles now about the importance of team culture. These are two guys that you want as foundational pillars for building that team culture, aren't they?
Yes, well, and it's interesting. A big part of that is buy-in, right? And there's no doubt when you look at R.J. Barrett and Scotty Barnes, they have bought into what Coach Starko has preached to this group, and they carry it out. And when your top two guys do it by example, and are living, breathing, people that are embodying what you're preaching and are willing to lay it on the line to do it, it creates great internal pressure on the other guys to live up to that standard. And that's what I see, is that these guys are putting it out there and doing whatever it takes for the greater good. So if you're on this team, you have to carry yourself the same way, because they're the best two guys in the room. And to me, I think that's what's so special. And there were a lot of skeptics this year about this group in terms of their ability to beat high-end competition. Now, look, this is a 4-5 series. The Raptors were 3-0 against Cleveland during the year. Cleveland's made some nice moves and upgrades since the early part of the year when the Raptors beat them. But when you look at the Raptors Cavs right now, they're 6-3 in 9 games against this club. So there's a pattern there. Again, it's a 4-5 matchup, so the margin of error isn't too much. Honestly, the Raptors were the better team overwhelmingly in Game 5, but they didn't close it. Theoretically, this series could be over already, but it's not. And, Cleveland gets the benefit as the 4 seed to play on their home court. But the Raptors have been, particularly Game 2 and 3, very competitive in those games. So I think come in with great confidence. But when I look at this right now, I think such a big part of it. Someone asked me last night, what's your impression of Cleveland right now? And I guess the word that keeps jumping out in my head is rattled. They look rattled. When you can get behind your opponent's, when you get behind the opponent's enemy line, and like you're meeting them before they even make their move, like you're inside their play calls. You're like, they make a step, you're already there. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, they got to scout it out. You start getting a little jumpy, and you get a little uncomfortable. And, great defense is the disposition to dominate. And I think what the Raptors are doing right now is they clearly have the Cavs on the run. They're rattled. They're on their heels. They're second-guessing themselves. They're hesitant. Now, that could all change tomorrow night very easily because home court, as we know, is important. And Cleveland has so much more playoff experience than Toronto. So this will be a new experience for all these guys to play in a Game 7, one-game season scenario. So it'll be cool to watch. But nonetheless, the totality of 6 games, that what I'm seeing right now is clearly that which team has really created the personality for the series. I would say Toronto's been, what do you call it? Are you going to be the creator of circumstance or the creature? Are you going to lead the parade or watch the parade? And I think right now the Raptors have been the creator of it, and they have to be. If they don't do that, they have no chance of winning. Like, this is the only way they can play to be successful. And to their credit, they're laying it on the line and getting themselves into that style of play that gives them a chance to be successful.
I'm talking with Jack Armstrong, longtime color analyst for the Toronto Raptors, here on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Jack, the fourth quarter in the last 2 games in particular has a spotlight shining on it that the Raptors are having a hard time closing games out. Like you said, in Game 5, Raptors were clearly the best team through 3.5 quarters. Last night, they went into the fourth quarter with a good lead and really had to battle and rely on what you would have to call an act of God shot at the end to win it. But what do you think the Raptors in particular specifically have to do in the fourth quarter if they have a lead or they're real close in order to be able to close it out against this more experienced Cleveland Cavalier team?
Well, easy for me to say it, hard to do it.
Right.
Because you've played this team 9 times and obviously 6 times in a playoff environment. What you run, they're going to be waiting there for you as you run it. So there's no secrets, right? Occasionally there's surprises, but there's no secrets. So for me, I think you have to say to yourself, okay, what are the 3 best actions I can run to generate positive shot opportunities for my team when I'm under duress? I mean, that's going to be, to me, the critical element going into this. If you get into the fourth quarter tomorrow night, you got to look at the personnel that you have on the floor and say, okay, with this group, we're going to run these 3 actions and try to create something out of it. And to me, I think you gotta, it's a game of matchups. But I kept saying it during the game last night. Cleveland very help conscious, particularly when Barrett has the ball and Barnes has the ball. So I think you got to create actions where the ball's getting into the paint, and now you're bringing multiple bodies to the ball, and now you're able to kick it out quick and get the ball moving where you get an opportunity at a clean shot. I think as R.J. Barrett got frustrated, they put a lot of size on him. They did that in Wednesday night's Game 5 as well, late, and he struggled. And he doesn't quit on plays. He keeps that bounce alive. And I said it a few times during the game, late, you bring 2 guys to you, get rid of it. Get it to the next guy. Don't let the ball stick in your hands because the clock's winding down and you've done something positive to bring 2 people to you. Get rid of it quick and trust your teammates. And I think the thing that's happening now, that Jacoby Walter has been a very productive third guy, and Colin Murray-Boyles as an option around the basket. And Shed has just been flying all over the place, being really productive. If you're Barnes and you're Barrett, your trust in those guys is growing. But I think, to me, I think your 5-on-5 half-court offense, I said it in the last 6-8 weeks of the season, that's going to define you. That's playoff basketball. And I worked for a guy who was in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, a guy named Tom Penders, who I worked for at Fordham. And he used to always, I thought it was really interesting, when we would play against elite defense, everything we did in practice was with an extra man, meaning we'd go 3-on-4, 4-on-5, 5-on-6. Kind of like when you prepare a quarterback in football and, you have 5 guys on the offensive line, maybe you even keep a tight end in as an extra blocker. And now, okay, we're going to send 7 at your 6. Well, we're going to send 8 at your 6. And now you got to keep a fullback in the block. And now under duress, that quarterback has to make reads. And, again, we're not playing chess here. We're playing turbo chess. So you got to process and make quick reads. And it's the same thing. I think the Raptors to the Cavs right now, when you watch them on offense, it looks like they're going against 6 guys. And that's a credit to the Raptor defense. I think for the Raptors, when it gets in the fourth quarter, their lack of experience, I wouldn't give the Cavs that much credit defensively that their defense is that elite. It's been a bottom half of the league defense. But it stiffens, and it's got enough experienced guys that they are in the right places at least, so they don't have breakdowns. So I think you really have to be that much tougher, and you got to be decisive in your actions. And therefore, I think you got to say, okay, rather than expand your playbook, you got to have those pet plays in your pocket where you say, okay, we're under the gun. These are the 3 plays we're going to run, and these are the goals and purposes of running those plays.
It's interesting, Jack, that you state it that way, because when in terms of fast-tracking the learning of this young team, the fact that they have had 2 fourth-quarter tight games now leading up to Game 7 gives them the opportunity to learn quicker, as opposed to if they were both blowout games or lopsided games. This has prepared these kids for the fire. Whether they'll be able to respond to it or not, of course, that remains to be seen. But the fact that this young team has played so hard that without 2 of their starters have been able to respond the way they have and create the most excitement that we have felt really since 2019 across the country for this team. This is a real easy team to like, and the way that you've been able to share and break it down for us today is fantastic. I can't thank you enough, Jack, in your very busy schedule for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, my pleasure. And no, it's very exciting right now. It's kind of like I don't know if this group's going to get to the World Series or anything like that, like the Jays. But I think you nailed it there in terms of talking about the 2019 team. And that was kind of an innocent climb from 2014 to 2019. That was a gradual build. So maybe we're at that early stage where you're on that innocent climb where people start to fall back in love with an identity and the personalities of the different players. I felt that last night, and there was kind of a malaise over this team, even though they had a really good year, 46 wins, 5th seed, 16-game improvement, 25 wins, 30 wins, then 46. Coach Starko's done a great job. Yet there was this skepticism because they couldn't beat top 10 teams and like a little cynicism. And I also think there was a hangover in the city from what happened with the Jays losing in the World Series. I think people were so invested in that. I think sometimes people are a little reluctant to have their hearts broken again. So they're holding back a little bit. And I finally felt last night that people were willing to fall in love again. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but there's it's the all line. Your heart knows before your brain. And like I felt it in my heart last night, like the response that after the game of just the fans, and you run into so many of them when the game ends. There was that feeling like, oh my God, this is the beginning of that again. So win or lose tomorrow night, I think mission accomplished in terms of establishing a personality and something that I think you can build on. And, you hope you can build on it tomorrow night and win. And I sure hope that can happen. And if it doesn't, I still think you've built something that you can really hang your hat on and grow with.
You're taking me back to high school poetry class with Father Luke and Jack, and better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. So your point about the hearts being broken after the Jays and reluctantly, but now I think opening their hearts up to this very likable Raptors team is extremely exciting. And like you say, mission accomplished.
I hear you, and it'll be exciting tomorrow night. And again, there's a beauty in March Madness, where it's that one-game season scenario, and you only get it in the NBA and NHL and Major League Baseball when you say Game 7, and here we are. So it'll be a lot of fun. Really will.
Jack Armstrong, thanks so much, Jack, for today. Let's enjoy Game 7 and see what happens, and I hope we can talk again soon.
You got it, Paul. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
You too, Jack. The great Jack Armstrong. Get in that garbage out of here. Nothing but quality stuff. That guy, I'll tell you, he sounds like such a nice guy when you hear him, Josh. But in reality, when you meet him, he's so much nicer than he sounds. I'll share a quick Jack Armstrong anecdote. The most enjoyable car ride I've ever had was driving from Edmonton to Calgary. Jack came in 2016 and did 2 coaching clinics, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary, obviously. And myself, my son Steve, Jeff Bailey, my longtime associate at Alberta Basketball, who Steve's best friend, we rode down to Calgary and had dinner with Jack that night. And he told story after story, and we had so much fun. That's one of the great memories. He's one of the great people. So every time I hear Jack call a game, it's a pleasure. And he, I think, set the table really nicely, didn't he?
Yeah, he absolutely did. And I also have a Jack Armstrong story, actually. Okay. I've never personally met him, but my godfather, bless him, got me a cameo from him on my birthday. I think this would be probably my 16th birthday.
Oh, that's very
cool. And in classic My Godfather fashion, it did come a couple months late. And so what happened was in January, he's like, hey, this is your birthday present. And I think Jack Armstrong said my name probably 37 times in this video of that was 2.5 minutes. Like, happy birthday, Josh. But he led off with, get that garbage out of here.
Well, Jack is one of the great ones. He really is a national treasure. And having been involved with the Raptors as long as he has, he brings such life and passion to the broadcast. You get an honest effort every night. As he described R.J. Barrett and Scotty Barnes, that's the kind of effort you always get out of Jack Armstrong, along with his incredible expertise and insight. We're going to take a break right now, and you're going to listen to part 2 of our deep dive today in my conversation with Ben Golliver. This is a great one because Ben and I go deep into, I'd say, the fallout for the Denver Nuggets from the loss to Minnesota, the effect on Nikola Jokic's reputation and legacy, and what to expect from the upcoming series against the San Antonio Spurs by the Timberwolves. You're listening to Hoop City with Paul Sir, Josh Fenwick on your sports leader, Sports 1440. I'm talking with Ben Golliver today here on the Deep Dive with Paul Sir on Hoop City. All right, let's go to the Minnesota-Denver series.
I can't believe you made it this long without talking about them. I thought we would be doing the whole hour about this series.
Well, I wanted to give some credit to the rest of the NBA that they at least matter a little bit, but now they're out of the way. Let's get to the real stuff here. Minnesota, I'll start our conversation with this. I thought Barkley did a great job at halftime of identifying what a true effort looks like on the court, a true desperation effort backed with quality of play on the part of a team that could easily have done the Atlanta thing, although it's rare to see that kind of tank. But they easily could have thought, woe is us, we just really don't have a chance, or played with uncertainty. There was no uncertainty. Guys like Shannon, who hadn't played all year, played like a demon, a man possessed. But so did the Stars. I mean, this was a coming out for Jaden McDaniel. This whole series was a coming out for him, both in terms of what he said, but the way he played. But the effort, the supreme effort by the Timberwolves, and to be able to string it together over two halves, very, very impressive when they were down so many key players.
It's one of the gutsiest wins I can remember seeing in the playoffs. Obviously, it's only a first-round series, so maybe you're not going to say it's one of the best wins, but if you're talking about heart and grit and gut and just digging it out without 4 injured guys, it was incredible. This was a case where the home crowd absolutely made a huge difference. Have you ever seen A-Rod look happier than he looked late in that game? I mean, did you ever see him look that happy with Derek Jeter? I didn't. I couldn't remember that. You know?
No, it kind of looked the opposite with Derek Jeter. But
that's what I mean, right? And so he's living his best life, and he wasn't alone. I've seen that Minnesota Timberwolves crowd have its heart broken so many times in the playoffs these last couple of years. I was up there when Luka hit the daggers, and they've had some other misadventures at home. It feels like they all put on the white T-shirts, and then it's like, oh God, horrible things happen. And for once, it was their night, and boy, that must have been just an awesome party for them to experience. Jaden McDaniels, trash talk like what he came out with earlier in this series will often bug me if it's not from a star player, because it's one of those kind of unwritten things in the NBA. Don't step out of line. But what Jaden McDaniels did was he understood there was some weakness and some softness to the Denver group. They were not nearly as hard playing. They were not nearly as locked in as Minnesota. And so his trash talk was very pointed. I think it was thoughtful. It was not spur of the moment. It was a direct challenge. And when he's talking about the defensive capabilities of everybody on Denver's roster, and I thought I had no problem with it, because it just set the terms out there like, hey, we're not afraid of you. We know you've got a 3-time MVP, but we're here. We're going right at your throat, try to stop us, basically. And when push came to shove, I can't remember a guy walking the walk after talking the talk as brilliantly as Jaden McDaniels, especially a role player, a guy who isn't really like the face of a team, right? And to do it without Anthony Edwards was incredible. But I think it was 32 points, 10 rebounds, a whole bunch of great defensive plays late to bring it home. Jaden McDaniels was the best guy on the court in the closeout game. I thought he outplayed Joker, as crazy as that sounds. He had a bigger impact. And in the winning moments, he came up time and time again. Big steal on Joker, big defensive pressure with Jamal Murray, hits a clutch mid-range pull-up shot to kind of help ice the victory. I mean, he was just everywhere. And I think, in Minnesota, the fans, they love to get, like Naz Reid tattoos. I'm sure you've heard about that. All these thousands of fans who have tattooed Naz Reid. Well, it's a good thing you got 2 arms, right? So you got Naz Reid on one arm, and then you just put Jaden McDaniels right on the other arm to match, right?
Well, and Minnesota gravitates towards the lesser of the stars. They're not That's real true. Marquee people. They're much more of a grounded group, and they'll have McDaniels tattoos probably before they have Ants tattoos on them, because they like the underdog. They really do. I think you make some phenomenal points there, and I guess the series, to me, it was literally like a switch was flipped midway through game 2 when it was pointed out by the announcers. They were observing, when are the Timberwolves going to start attacking the Nuggets defense as opposed to settling for soft jump shots on the perimeter? And when they did that, they stole that game where they were down 19, and they came back and won it. The series really flipped in that moment. This is what I thought was interesting. I have never seen a team focus as intently on the other team's weakness and relentlessly punish that team, continually going at that weakness the way the Wolves did at the defined, McDaniels identified Denver softness on defense. And they relentlessly, for the rest of the series, went at that and forced Denver to stop them. And Denver never could.
They couldn't. And not only that, they stopped Denver's offense. I mean, Denver under 100 multiple times in the series, closeout win. They can't even get 100 points with the whole season on the line. I mean, it's incredible. So a lot of credit goes to both McDaniels and Rudy Gobert in particular on the defensive end for having so much success against Joker. I think when we step back, though, people in Minnesota are going to remember McDaniels forever, and he probably will be a cult hero for his performance. I think the historical weight of this series, though, is what it really means with Joker and his career. And I was so disoriented watching the end of that game. It's like you never see all-time greats go out in the first round like that. Like, especially if the other team is half injured, it just doesn't happen. When they're in their primes and they're healthy, the best players rise up. That's the history of basketball, right? The superstars always get it done. And so I went back and I looked at every MVP who's still active. So I'm talking about LeBron, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, Shea, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kevin Durant. And I went through all their careers year by year to see, did any of them have a loss like this loss for Joker? And, the ones that I came up with was actually Giannis last year with the Milwaukee Bucks. They lost in the first round to the Pacers. I came up with Kevin Durant with the Brooklyn Nets, where they got swept by the Boston Celtics in the first round in 2022. And then I also had Embiid getting swept by the Celtics in the bubble, as being like maybe the most comparable situations where like an MVP caliber player was healthy, had a good team, and they just absolutely laid down in the first round and got knocked out. But even in those situations, there was always extenuating circumstances. Like Philly didn't have Ben Simmons, right? The Nets had just traded James Harden. You look at Giannis, Damian Lillard had torn his Achilles. Like, there's never been a situation where the situation was so favorable for the star in terms of being the higher seed, having more regular season wins, being healthy, being in his prime, being an MVP level player, being a champion, going against a half injured team. Like, this cocktail has just really never been seen before. And so that's why I really think this loss is going to stick to Joker from a legacy standpoint. Guys like LeBron and Steph Curry, who get viewed as top 10 all-time players, which is sort of what Joker's aiming for, don't have blemishes like this on their resume. There's nothing that we could point to. We could say LeBron struggled in the finals against the Mavericks. Well, that's the finals against Hall of Famers. It's not Terrence Shannon Jr. just run the ball down your throat for 48 minutes, right? And so I think that, Joker is an incredible player. I think he deserves all the MVPs. This was not his best season, and this was one of, I think, his worst series since he's really become a great player that I can remember. He just did not have the command and the orchestration that we're used to. And the reason why I bring up those examples with Giannis and Embiid and Kevin Durant, think about all the fallout that happened after those series, right? Damian Lillard got waived. Doc Rivers just left as coach. Milwaukee is now considering trading Giannis. You go back to Embiid with the Sixers. They fired Brett Brown right after that series. They traded Ben Simmons not too long after that. And with the Nets, it was a complete implosion. They ended up firing Steve Nash, their coach. They traded Kyrie. They traded Kevin Durant. And so what I'm saying right now after this loss for Denver, everybody's seat is scorching hot. I mean, scorching hot. David Adelman, coach, you got a lot to explain to ownership. Jamal Murray, that was a terrible game 7. Trade block, that stuff could pop up as a conversation. And I also think with Joker and his future, it's now a question. We always just assume, he's going to stay in Denver forever. These kinds of losses tend to shape players' careers, and so it's either everything is going to change around Joker and he's going to get a better opportunity with like Nuggets 2.0, or he's going to look for greener pastures and something else is going to have to give. So I expect big changes in Denver as we go forward.
Love that summary. A couple of thoughts that I have. First of all, just a real quick touch on Murray. He was horrible last night.
Yeah,
it wasn't just horrible in terms of going 4 for 16. It was horrible in terms of effort. His body language. Now, was there something wrong? Maybe, but I didn't think so. I thought Jaden McDaniels' defense wore him down. The fact that McDaniels can stay in front of him at 6'8", 6'9", with those long arms and make your life a living hell to get over half court, and then when you're over half court, to be under such intense pressure, it just looked like it wore Jamal down. But he had no spark, no lift, nothing in the fourth quarter, when typically he's been quite heroic. So, and I give all the credit to the Minnesota defense on that. I think you just have to watching the result and the outcome. But I also think that impacted Joker a lot too. For the first time, Joker looked rattled, flustered, and unsure of himself offensively. And that, of course, you have to give credit to Rudy Gobert. But I'll go one step further. Number two, I thought that the two wings, Johnson and Jones, I thought they performed admirably.
Yeah,
I really did. I thought they were fine. Christian Braun was god-awful. Yeah. Like, you could not throw him the ball and expect anything good to happen pretty much throughout the series, with a few exceptional plays here and there. So I thought Joker had limited options of who to pass to, and he still had a lot of assists. But his uncertainty with the ball one-on-one offensively, the help side defense from the Timberwolves, that frantic pace that we were talking about before, that looked like for the first time it overwhelmed Joker. It looked like he was massively uncomfortable out there with all that was going on around him. I hadn't seen that before. Plus, I hadn't seen a player who he had, and what's interesting, Rudy Gobert found something new in him at his mid-30s age, and it was exemplified not just in how he bothered Joker, Ben, but those 2 assists that he had on kickouts to the corner, the penetrate and kick to his left, and then a left-handed scoop pass under Joker to the other side of the court for the open 3.
Yeah.
Where in the heck have you ever seen Rudy Gobert make one pass like that, much less 2 within the same half?
No, and this is a guy who's kind of notorious for having bad hands, and he has like this beautiful flick of the wrist with his off hand to the corner for a 3. It was like maybe he got some of Joker's powers by osmosis. I don't know exactly how that works, you know. I thought what we said about Joker was really smart. I mean, he got sped up and he got frantic in a way that he rarely does. Typically, what we see with Joker is his incredible basketball brain will calculate, I want to be a passer first. But if my guys are not hitting their shots, or somebody like Christian Braun is fading from the series, I am now going to recalculate, and I'm going to do enough scoring of my own to make up for it. And so in this particular series, given kind of some of the hit or miss contributions from his co-stars, you would typically expect Joker to go for 40, right? And it's just like, hey, that's what the team needs. So he defaults to that like kind of backup plan where he becomes the scorer. He couldn't score 40 against Rudy Gobert. That was the problem. Rudy Gobert was challenging him so well, making his shots difficult. And unfortunately, Joker just had a bad shooting season from outside this year. That's the big thing that opens up everything, that turns him into the unfair player, is when he's hitting the 3-point shot. And boy, do the Lakers fans know that, because it felt like he hit every big 3 against them in the playoffs multiple times, right?
Yes.
But he couldn't hit his 3s this year. And it was really a problem for a while. And so once you take that away, and once he can't score at will against Rudy one-on-one when he needs to, they just could not generate enough offense. And, Murray just, really made everything worse, because usually he's the other escape valve, and he couldn't do it. Of course, they miss Aaron Gordon because he attracts a lot of defensive attention too, and helps create some space. He's a good 3-point shooter as well. But Denver, it's unbelievable. They had the number 1 offense during this like pace and space offensive obsessed era during the regular season. If you watched that series, you would have thought they were 25th in offense, right? I mean, they just couldn't do almost anything. Yes, Joker compiled some numbers, but, I don't want to call them empty stats, but it wasn't the typical impact that he usually has. And that's why, again, there's something deeply wrong here. And this is not a matter of, just run it back next year, the vibes will be better. That's going to be a huge mistake if you try to do that.
It will be a huge mistake, and it won't work, because what they lacked. I'll start it. I'm going to two technical things. Number one, that pass of Gobert to the corner, the first pass to his left. I believe it was Jones was helping out in the middle. What in the world? You're at that level that you're not prepared for the fact that Rudy Gobert cannot dribble more than once without hurting himself. And he's now dribbling downhill towards the basket, and you're leaving a guy wide open in the corner to help out on Rudy Gobert. That's bad preparation, or the player just not reacting in the moment. But there, throughout, to McDaniel's comments, there is a technical problem, not just an ability problem, in the way that the Nuggets guarded. They did not have the energy, effort, commitment, or technical sets that they executed. Maybe they were just rattled, and they were, but they just didn't do it. They did not do basic fundamental things on defense that you have to do. Number two, on
Aaron Gordon cleans up a lot. Aaron Gordon cleans up a lot. And it's like, just like when you take a best scorer off of a team, it's really easy to watch the offense fall apart. It's not always talked about as much. You take the best defensive player off a team, especially if he's not a center, right? But you just take the glue guy, defensive guy out, who's covering up for all these other mistakes. All of a sudden, the whole thing falls to pieces.
Well, and to your point, though, Ben, on the Minnesota side, it was the effort of all five players virtually on almost all possessions that I could see that they were putting in that Denver wasn't. And that's where you can lose your best defensive player, but you can still fundamentally be a decent defensive team if you execute your strategy with effort, commitment, and intensity. And I did not see that in the Nuggets. That's number one. Number two, on Joker's three-point shot, I hope he spends the offseason with a good shooting coach, because there's a difference between his three-point shot now and three-point when he was killing the Lakers. He's loosened his sling up. He goes back further on his release, and he doesn't follow through. You can really see, I'm hoping this goes in his shot, as opposed to
let's do a PSA to Joker. Joker, I know who your shooting coach should be. It's the guy who's diagnosing it right now. He's got a good track record. I heard his son made a few three-pointers in college and could probably pass some wisdom on. Maybe we need just to get the Sir family reunion with Joker to put it all together and make it happen. What do you think?
I think it wouldn't hurt. Hoop City with Paul Sir and Josh Fenwick on this beautiful Saturday morning. Really appreciate you taking the time and making the time to spend it with us today. In our last segment, we're going to wrap things up. First of all, I'd like to start with a little bit of Edmonton-based news, and that is 2 Edmonton players just signed with the University of Idaho. And I've got a couple of stories about the University of Idaho. A nephew of mine, Nathaniel Watson, was a great player for East Glen High School back in the 90s. And Nathaniel went to the University of Idaho and played there until his career was ended early when he took a charge and ended up having to have his spleen removed. And Nathaniel's been an incredibly successful businessman down in the U.S., has 2 sons playing for Brigham Young University in football. But Nathaniel went to the University of Idaho. We took a lot of teams down to the University of Idaho, met their coaches, and really had an impact on a lot of players from Edmonton way back in the 90s. But now Hudson Ward, a very fine player from Leduc, who has been at both Penn State and Western Michigan the last 2 years, just signed with the Vandals in Idaho. And also TJ Wall from O'Leary has signed with them as well. And TJ's big claim to fame is this year against a very good SFX team that finished second in the province, had over 60 points in a game against them. He's a fine player. That was a couple of years ago, actually. He was at a prep school down in the States. He's also committed to the Vandals. So 2 more Edmontonians in Division I playing basketball. Josh, we didn't get to point number 3 in our 3+1 this morning. So why don't you take us through that, and we're going to make some prognostications right now to wrap the show up.
Yeah, so the the Western Conference Finals, round 2 is set. And I just want to know what your predictions for the series is. How many games are each team going to win, and who is going to the Western Conference Finals?
Well, it's hard. First of all, it's hard to bet against San Antonio facing off against Oklahoma City in the conference finals. Mm-hmm. I look for Oklahoma City to sweep the Lakers. Mm-hmm. I just don't see how without Luka, even with Austin Reeves back. Certainly, it's an admirable effort, and kudos to LeBron James. We were talking off air, Josh. I have a lot of respect for the effort that LeBron James made to lead this Laker team to what you have to call an upset win over the Houston Rockets, even without Kevin Durant and Steven Adams and, of course, Fred VanVleet. Both teams knocked up, but the loss of Luka Doncic is too huge. So kudos to the Lakers, but the Spurs are hitting on all cylinders. It'll be interesting to see them play after being off on such an extended break. The Timberwolves against the Spurs. The Timberwolves have had success against the San Antonio Spurs. They give the Spurs trouble. But, and this is the big asterisk here, You do not have Anthony Edwards at the beginning of the series. It's rumored that at some point during the series, Ant could be back. And that's the thing, could be back. And if he is back, how healthy is he? How hard is he able to go? Dante DiVincenzo, who is playing fantastic and is an integral part of the guard play of the Timberwolves, particularly against a very deep and talented San Antonio Spur backcourt. With Dante DiVincenzo being out with his ruptured Achilles, I just think that really creates problems for the Wolves in terms of their depth. Now, having said that, it'll be interesting to watch Gobert match up against his fellow Frenchman in Wemby. That's going to be a great matchup. And the Wolves do something that bothers the Spurs, and that is they're very, very physical. I'm going to go with the Spurs in 5 or 6, but I think the Wolves, if they can be relatively healthy with the improved play of Dosunmu, who was fantastic in that series. The other night, they had a couple of their bench players Shannon had a career night. You never know with the Wolves because they played extremely hard. And I love your opinion on this, Josh, before we have to wrap up. That was a really impressive effort by the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 6 against the Numbers. They played so hard. And, of course, Jaden McDaniels is emerging. I don't want to call him a star yet, but he is starting to trend towards becoming a star in this league. Oh yeah, he's right there. He's getting there with his offensive game, and yeah, 2 walk in the walks. Obviously, I think this is 3 years ago. Anthony Edwards in a pregame presser or whatever says, "Yeah, they have Kevin Durant, but we got Jaden McDaniels," and that has aged like wine. Like it has aged so well. And then him saying they're bad defenders. And then for him to be the guy that knocks the Nuggets off on both sides of the court is absolutely unbelievable. Like, I think it was Ben that said it, that you don't see stars like this lose in the first round in Nikola Jokic. And Jaden McDaniels was the reason that they lost. So, like, the effort put forth by the Timberwolves missing their best player and one of their best guard defenders is absolutely unreal. So I've come away very impressed with them. My playoff prediction here is very similar to yours. I think the OKC Thunder absolutely sweep the Lakers, and then I will take the Spurs in 6. I think Jaden McDaniels by himself might be able to win 2 of these games, but Rudy Gobert got it done against Jokic, but I don't think he's getting it done against Wemby. I don't think he's getting it done, but I do think, especially around the basket, he can make it more uncomfortable for Wemby rather than most of the post players in the NBA can. Of course, Wemby has that incredible ability to shoot the 3 and put it on the deck and go to the basket. So I agree with you. It's not going to be the same as Jokic because Wemby's athleticism and length are just so foreign in terms of everybody in the league. So I think that it's going to be 2 great Western Conference series, and we've got, of course, 3 Game 7s in the East. You're going to have a wonderful weekend of basketball. We like to wrap up every week at this time with my son Ben's song dedicated to David, his friend. Ben passed away 3 years ago, and I always like to lead off our show with one of his songs and then play this song at the end of the show because he dedicated to David, who lost his life in a tragic car accident. The message to me is crystal clear and of the utmost importance. Make sure those that are in your lives that you value and love, that you tell them frequently and treat them with love and respect. And those that you encounter in your life that you don't know, we don't walk a mile in our brother or sister's shoes, so we don't know what they're going through. So think the best of others and treat them with kindness. That's what Ben would do, and that's what I want to honor my son by asking you to treat others in the same way. Josh, this has been a wonderful show. Thanks so much for today. I was happy to do it, Paul. I'm excited for next week already. Likewise. Thanks to our guest, Ben Golliver, the great Jack Armstrong, Roland Morris, wishing well with his 3x3 event, but to have Jack and Ben on, fantastic stuff. To all of you, enjoy the basketball games. Have a great week on and off the court. You've been listening to your sports leader, Sports 1440. This is Hoop City with Paul Serra and Josh Fenwick. Have a great week.